All right, so you probably think you know all about photosynthesis from high school biology, right? Well, today we're going to go way beyond the basics. We're diving into the incredible high-performance upgrades some plants have evolved. These are advanced strategies that let them not just survive, but absolutely thrive in some of the toughest conditions on Earth.
It really starts with a simple question. Have you ever looked at a cornfield in the middle of a blazing hot summer and it's just thriving? Meanwhile, maybe your tomato plant in the garden is wilting and struggling. Why is that? Well, the answer is a fascinating biochemical secret, and that's exactly what we're going to unpack today.
To really appreciate these brilliant solutions, we have to start with the problem. And that problem is baked right into the most common type of photosynthesis on the entire planet, what we call the C3 pathway. Think of it as the standard engine for plant life, but it's got a pretty serious design flaw. So here's the heart of the issue. There's this super important enzyme called rubisco. Its whole job is to grab CO2 from the air and lock it into a molecule the plant can use. But when it gets hot and dry, the plant has to close up its pores to stop losing water. This means oxygen starts to build up inside the leaf, and poor rubisco, well, it gets confused. It starts grabbing oxygen molecules instead of CO2. This huge mistake is called photorespiration, and it is absolutely the villain of our story. It's just a massive waste. The plant burns precious energy, uses up oxygen, and at the end of the day, gets zero sugar out of it. It's like a factory that's not just shut down, but is actively burning fuel to run completely in reverse. A total mess. So, how did life solve this huge problem? Well, evolution didn't just make a small tweak. It came up with two fundamentally different and, frankly, brilliant upgrades. One is kind of like installing a turbocharger for CO2, and the other is like shifting the entire factory production schedule to the night shift. Okay, let's dive into that first solution, the C4 pathway. This strategy is all about physically re-engineering the factory floor inside the leaf. It's what we call a spatial fix. And you've seen these high-performance plants everywhere. We're talking about some of the world's most critical crops, right? Corn, sugarcane, sorghum. These guys are perfectly built to just dominate in the hot, sunny, and often dry parts of the world. So, what's their secret sauce? It all comes down to their anatomy, this special leaf structure called Kron's anatomy. See that cool wreath-like pattern of cells? That's actually what Kron's means in German. C4 plants use two different types of cells, an outer layer and an inner ring, and they work together in this incredibly tight collaboration. Now get this. Here's how this elegant system works. The outer cells have an enzyme that is a CO2 specialist. It's like a super strict bouncer at a club who only lets CO2 in. It grabs the CO2 and then actively pumps it into those inner cells. This creates a high-pressure CO2-rich chamber right where rubisco is waiting. It basically floods rubisco with so much CO2 that grabbing an oxygen molecule by mistake becomes almost impossible. All right, now for a completely different strategy. If C4 plants solve the problem in space by using two different cells, CAM plants solve it in time. This is literally photosynthesis on the night shift. Just think about a cactus or a succulent out in the desert, opening up its pores during the day to get CO2. That would be a death sentence. It would lose all its water in minutes. So instead, they keep their pores, their stomata, sealed shut during the brutal heat of the day, and they only open them in the cool of the night to breathe in CO2. And the genius of this system is how they store it. All night long, they take in CO2 and convert it into an acid, basically banking it for later. Then, when the sun comes up and provides the energy for photosynthesis, they slam their pores shut, break down that stored acid, and release a concentrated burst of CO2 right next to their rubisco enzyme. It's amazing. They make all their sugar without ever opening up to the hot, dry air. But, there's no such thing as a free lunch, especially in biology. These incredible upgrades, this CO2 pump and this night shift storage system, they don't run for free. They actually require a much bigger energy investment from the plant. So here's the bill. To fix one single molecule of CO2, a standard C3 plant spends 3 units of cellular energy, or ATP. But a C4 plant, it has to shell out 5 units of ATP. Those extra 2 ATPs, that's the price it pays to run that CO2 pump we were just talking about. And this is just a classic evolutionary trade-off, isn't it? This extra energy investment is only worth it in places where the alternative, losing a ton of carbon and water through photorespiration and evaporation, is an even bigger cost. It's a high-risk, high-reward strategy that only pays off when the going gets tough. So let's pull this all together. We've got three incredible biochemical pathways, all driving towards the exact same goal: turn sunlight and carbon dioxide into sugar. It's pretty cool to compare them side by side. And if you want to remember one thing, this is it. It simplifies the whole concept beautifully. C3 photosynthesis. It all happens in one place at one time. C4 separates the process into two places, those two different cell types. And CAM process separates the process into two times, night versus day.
Now let's just nerd out on the details for a second. A really key difference is right here, the primary CO2 acceptor. C3 plants use RubyP, that's the enzyme that can get confused by oxygen, but C4 plants, they use that highly specific PEP enzyme first. That's the secret weapon that avoids all those wasteful mistakes.
And here is the big payoff for that extra energy cost. For C4 plants, photorespiration is basically a non-issue. It's negligible. That means their CO2 fixation rate is way higher and their optimal temperature is much, much higher, perfect for the tropics. And you see it right in the examples. C3 plants like rice and wheat, they like it mild. But C4 plants like maize and sugarcane, they bring the heat. And so we end on a really important question. Understanding these advanced photosynthesitic pathways, it's not just some academic exercise. As our planet gets warmer and drier, which of these strategies is going to come out on top? The answer to that question could be absolutely critical for the future of agriculture and really for ensuring our food security on this rapidly changing planet.